Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are looking at Islamic jurisprudence from a totally different angle. We're not treating it like some ancient, dusty historical text. No, we're looking at it as incredibly sophisticated system architecture. So let's get right into Sharia Engineering Part 3, the mandate of prayer. Think about your daily life for a second. We are just constantly bombarded by the noise of the material world, right? Debts, anxieties, endless phone notifications. It really begs a critical question. What actually happens when your soul's RAM gets completely full? Like, how do we prevent a total human system crash when the processing power of our mind is just utterly overwhelmed by all this worldly data? Well, the solution lies in a structural shift. Imagine the Kaaba, but think of it as a sovereign central server sitting within a massive digital dome. In this framework, the Islamic daily prayer, or Salah, isn't just a physical ritual. According to our sources, it's actually a highly precise sovereign communication protocol directed right to that central server. It's a protocol meticulously designed to protect the human kernel from crashing. So let's break down the first piece of code in this Sharia engineering. The core concept here is al-wujub, which translates to the mandate. And this is the absolute directive to initiate the communication protocol. It's not a suggestion, it's not optional. It is a compulsory, scheduled system update for the human soul to keep it functioning optimally. But, when exactly do you run this update? That brings us to al-Saba, or the cosmic cause. And honestly, this is fascinating, because the trigger isn't just some arbitrary time on a clock. Time itself, the actual physical rotation of the celestial spheres and the ranks of time, acts as the cosmic trigger for this mandate. The universe literally signals when the communication window opens up. If we map this celestial cycle across a standard day, we get a really precise schedule, starting from Fajr at dawn, moving through Dhuhr at midday, Asr in the afternoon, Maghrib at sunset, and finally Isha at night. And to make absolutely sure the user doesn't miss this window, the system actually has a built-in safeguard. The adhan, the call to prayer, acts as the ultimate global recurring notification to initiate the sync. Of course, just like logging into any high-level software protocol, the prayer mandate requires the user to have the correct system credentials before they can actually connect. In Sharia, this is known as al-shart, or the system requirements. Basically, without these credentials, the authentication simply fails. So what are these credentials exactly? We can break them down into two cyber analogies. First up, you need puberty, or bulugh. Think of this as your hardware maturity. It's indicated by physical development, or just reaching age 15. Second, you need intellect, or aqal. This is your software functionality. Your cognitive processing has to be clear. If the software is corrupted, like in the case of insanity, the capacity to run the protocol is completely removed. But what if there's just a temporary software interruption? The sources outline what we can call a system sleep mode, and it provides a really fascinating nuance. Losing your intellect by choice, like through drunkenness, does not excuse you from the mandate. However, involuntary states, like sleep or fainting, just pause your requirements. It removes the sin of missing that exact window, but you absolutely still have to run the update once the system wakes up. Okay, but what happens when the hardware itself is undergoing necessary internal maintenance? This is where we introduce the concept of almania, or organic barriers. Now, these aren't glitches, they are built-in system exclusions that legitimately allow the user to bypass the mandate entirely, without any penalty. The most prominent examples of this are menstruation and postpartum bleeding, which function as a complete biorhythmic bypass. The sources strongly emphasize that these are intentional exemptions written into the divine code, not system flaws. During these periods, the system bypass is absolute. The prayer protocol is not required, and there's no penalty or requirement to make it up later. The system is functioning exactly as it was engineered. So, assuming your credentials check out and there are no barriers, how do you actually execute the login? We can translate the physical acts of worship into a highly specific sequential algorithm. Step 1 is wudu, step 2 is the takbir, and step 3 culminates in sujood. Let's look a bit closer at what these steps are actually doing. The absolutely crucial point here is that these physical actions are a precise, coded language. Executing the protocol starts with wudu. This is literally flushing your input sensors, your face, your hands, of daily material data and clearing that cache. Then the takbir, saying Allahu Akbar, establishes an immediate firewall to block out all external distractions. Reciting the Quran is like downloading live firmware updates directly from the creator. And finally, sujood, prostration, well, that's the direct request transmission to the control center. And all of this culminates in what the scholar Ibn Taymiyyah calls the barzakh of prayer. Now, a barzakh is essentially a bridge, an interactive state between two different realities. Prayer is the ultimate barzakhian programming. It's the precise moment where the physical rhythm of the body and the spiritual consciousness of the soul are syncing up and working together at their absolute highest levels. Think about the stark contrast between these two states. Before logging in, the user is stuck in the prison of material noise. Your RAM is totally overwhelmed with anxiety and worldly debts. But after the sync is complete, you enter the sovereign expanse. You achieve profound clarity, divine synchronization, and what the source texts beautifully describe as a cold power, this grounded ability to make calm, wise decisions. Because ultimately, completing the prayer algorithm performs a literal factory reset on the human kernel. It pulls the user completely out of the illusion and the heavy gravity of the material world. It clears out all those corrupt files and temporary data that have been bogging you down, and it restores you to your original, intended operational state. This entire architectural marvel is so perfectly summarized in the Prophet Muhammad's famous words to his companion Bilal, the one who gave the call to prayer. He told him, "Comfort us with it, O Bilal." You see, this wasn't just about taking a quick break from work. It was the ultimate calibration point. It was the direct command to initiate the system reboot for a weary soul that was just exhausted by the world's processing demands. Which leaves us with one final, absolutely vital question to reflect on. Look at your own daily routines right now. Look at your own mental load. With all the noise and the corrupted files we accumulate every single day, is it time to clear your cache and run a factory reset on your own operating system? Think about that as you go about your day. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.